Howdy folks, and welcome back to the third episode of this, I guess, rebooted Cidalmon thing. The previous two episodes were based on me making evolutions for the Grass Starter Cuptis and the Fire Starter Pipe-Up, and telling, the stories of those starters. If you want to watch those two, go right ahead, because I'm going to spoil them, and if you're interested in their story, again, go right ahead. But now we're on to the Water Starter, Confuzzle, the lonely, weird jellyfish thing. I'm really proud of these evolutions, I'm going to say right now, and I guarantee they're not going to be what you expect. And if they are, please comment and call me a fraud, and I'll apologise personally. And if you are surprised by these evolutions, let me know, so I know that my time wasn't wasted, and I can give myself a little pat on the back. Hee hee. But before we get onto the evolutions, we of course need to start with the beginning, which is Confuzzle. Since I did not record a speed drawing of him, I'll just quickly explain him so we can get caught up and then I'll show you the evolutions. Alright? Alright. Confuzzle is a weird little jellyfish thing what just floats about in the ocean, and he uses his tentacle tendrils things to spile around and confuse and hypnotise those around him. This is Confuzzle's way of fun. He thinks this is his way of making friends. However, well, no fish actually likes being confused, so they get annoyed by it and they tend to leave Confuzzle alone because of this. So Confuzzle just tends to be a weird, lonely jellyfish its only method, what it thinks it makes friends, is the reason why it's alone in the first place, so it is a bit lonely. And this problem escalates further because if it does find any other fish what tolerate it, it tends to get attached really quickly to the point where, well, again, those around it feel uncomfortable because Confuzzle latches onto the one thing what hasn't swam away from it, and again, it makes it even more lonely and even more weird looking. And before I jump into its evolution, which I'm going to do right after this, I want to just quickly explain some of the tropes in regular Pokemon starter trios. I'm pretty much like 80% of all starter Pokemon are very biasly male. That's not me trying to stir anything up, I'm just saying how it is. Most starter Pokemon are usually 87.5% likely to be male, I believe. Which isn't, I'm not stirring anything, just saying how it is. However, I guess it is easy to say that looking at most of these starters, they are more, they're stereotypically masculine, I guess. Let's say if you were a kid in the 80s, giant claws and fangs and dragon wings and water cannons and plants. I guess it's easy to imagine, all the little boys going mad for that. Not just boys, granted, it's, I'd argue one of the main reasons why Pokemon is so popular is that there's so many designs, most of them are liked by both sides of the gender. I'm just saying there's definitely it's clearly a more masculine based, as most starters are mostly male. Even starters what are traditionally feminine looking are mostly male. It's a fair choice. And looking at the other two starters, I guess you could say Cuptis looks very ambiguously gendered. It could be either gender or no gender. And then you look at Pipe-Up, and again, I feel like it definitely looks gendered, but I feel like it could easily be both. So I guess if we're going from Cuptis, genderless, from Pipe-Up to either gender, Confuzzle should go for one gender. And I chose feminine. Let's give one for the ladies. So I like Confuzzle being different in the sense of it's exclusively a female species. There's no chance of it being male at all. Or at least if it was, I guess it'd be a smaller chance. I guess you could say it would be 87.5% chance it'll be a female instead. So with this change in mind, I wanted to forward that in its evolution by, since the whole point of it is that it confuses others, I like the idea that its evolution, at least its first to the second, the third's pretty similar to the second, but I like the idea that its second evolution is extremely out of left field, you could say, at first glance. It's like, I didn't expect this at all, I'm confused, which, it's Confuzzle, what do you expect? Plus, I like the idea that the silhouette of Confuzzle's body could make a kind of dress, so that's kind of what I went with. Yes, this is the evolution Eccentress. Is it a weird name? It's a little bit, but that's kind of the point. It's a mix between eccentric and sorceress. It's eccentric because, well, the whole point is that since Confuzzle was a weird, lonely kid, well, going into its teenage years, it went into that, I guess, right? She became a self-fulfilling prophecy where Confuzzle was like, oh, everyone's going to treat me like the weird kid, I'll make myself even weirder, I'll go full-blown, I'll be who I want to be. I guess you could say, without anyone else to tell her what was right or wrong, or in this case, regularly seen as normal or not normal, she went her own path. She went full out onto it as well. Which in no way, sense or form, is a bad thing. She just went a little over the top, I guess you could say. I like to think, since she's now a psychic type, not just a pure water, I like to imagine, her mind's just filled up with all these different universes in her mind, what she's just thinking of all storylines and original characters and everything. She's made up her own storylines, her own characters, her own everything. I like to imagine, some of her moves are unique to her in the sense of she'll do a psychic move and she'll, say, oh, this is a reference to this show I made up in my head sort of thing. They even meet up with other eccentrices to, share their own stories, dress up as the characters they made, joke around with the characters they made. They have their own, conventions, I guess you could say. And I guess since she is also kind of meant to be kind of evil, she's a little bit mean-spirited in the sense of she was bullied a lot and mistreated a lot as a child because she was weird and lonely. So her being all weird and everything is her showing I do have control over who I become, I don't need anyone else's judgment, and at the same time I guess she can come off a little bit blunt or rude. Not specifically self-centered, but she doesn't usually think about how other people will understand what she says. So I do like the idea that, she usually offends people by her actions. But that's also mainly because, well, although she is a psychic type, she's really confused. She's still got a lot of things to know about, and she doesn't know a lot about everything, She makes up this facade that she's this proud entress, but on the inside she still feels lonely and, has self-image problems. I like to think most eccentricises wish they had longer tentacles, better hair, or, maybe longer noses or something. Just things they make their own imperfections up, and that's not necessarily their fault. A lot of people think, oh, they're just making excuses to feel bad about themselves, but deep down, they're confused as to why were they so lonely as a kid, because although it's obvious to us, to them, that was the only way they knew how to communicate, by waddling their tendrils. So the fact that they don't know why they were so lonely, they're kind of making up any realistic reason they could, and that's to their own downfall. I also included a cute little strand of, dyed hair. I like to imagine it is probably dyed. It's not natural, I don't think, but I like to imagine she styles it herself, because, she's trying to be different. And I didn't include it in the speed drawing, but afterwards I did change 2 of her tendrils to one green, one orange. I like to imagine this is rather a cosplay thing, where she changes the colour of her tendrils to match a character she made, or it's just kind of she's kind of humanoid, so that's the closest thing she has to gloves and, leggings, maybe, or something. But I didn't want to do it on both tentacles, because I didn't know if that would make it look too humanoid or not. But I guess, if you want to imagine her with all tentacles covered, then you can do that. So yes, this is Eccentress, the jellyfish witch, the jelly witch. That'll do. God damn it, now that makes me want to actually see a witch made out of jelly, like a slime witch. Damn it. Well, that's an idea for another day. We still got to see the final evolution of this thing. Now, whilst drawing this design, I didn't necessarily struggle, but I definitely had a few ideas what I kind of feel like I could have done better. That's not to say I'm not proud of these, though. I mean, I keep mentioning I'm terrible at drawing most kind of designs, and, well, I'm really happy how this one turned out. So this is Cyrex, a mix between Siren, Witch, and then, well, Wretch, because she's an evil siren witch thing. She's not evil, but you know what I mean. It adds into it. So the first idea I had was I like the idea of her having a lot of hair what kind of flows into what looks like she's got kind of like tentacle hair, if that makes sense, right? Just think of how Hatterene works, how she can control her hair. I guess this is a somewhat similar thing, except she can't make literal hands out of it. I also like the idea that the dress kind of comes out a bit sharper at the bottom. I like the idea that underneath the dress, it's kind of like one of those portals to the underworld, but like something dark where if the tentacles grab you, they'll drag you into the underworld and I don't know, do something creepy. I didn't really think too much into it. I just kind of like the idea of no one seeing what's underneath a Sir Wretch's dress. Sounds a bit weird when I say it like that, but it's one of those things where I guess, you'll be cursed if something happens. Or instead, maybe she'll just get incredibly angry at you. Yeah, you won't get actually cursed, she'll just bop you with all the weird little arm tentacle things. But yeah, this is Sir Wretch. After Eccentress, she grows up and she kind of realises she's tried too hard to be weird, and you know what? She is weird. That's who she is. And that's what makes her awesome, She doesn't need to try too hard to impress people, and she doesn't need to try too hard to impress herself. She's comfortable being who she is. She loves being this weird giantical? Sure. She loves being this giantical jellyfish witch. She's got a creepy smile. I gave her the swirly eyes back. She's got purple cheeks, although you won't see it until I add the colour. And, you know, she's happy being who she is. She's happy being weird. And that's not a bad thing at all. I like to imagine, you know, she finds other lonely Pokemon and says, you know, be who you are and embrace that, you know. She goes to all the other young boy and girl Confuzzles and, you know, tells them to embrace who they are. And at the same time, I still feel like she's kind of at this, she can still be a bit evil, but in the sense of she hates people who judged her as a kid, because she gets that she was different as a child, but she's still angry that, well, they had to suffer through all what they did. So I like the idea that, you know, they like to get revenge, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but if you're the trainer, well, as long as you didn't mistreat them, you'll be fine. You'll also notice in the colours, I like the idea that she doesn't have a specifically visible neck. It's just like an indent in her hair. I like the idea that maybe she doesn't actually have a neck and that her head can just float off her body, and like her hair just can become this weird tentacle hair thing with just the head in the centre, and the body can also just, I guess it'll slump over until it's reconnected. I thought that was a weird little creepy touch, because she is meant to be kind of creepy. She's got the swirly eyes, the creepy grin. I really wanted her to give her 3 tongues, because, well, it's a tentacle monster what confuses people, and that immediately reminded me of Cthulhu, a giant old one being. And I like the idea that if she had a bunch of tongues just pouring out of her mouth, it would kind of look a bit like Cthulhu's tentacle mouth thing. But problem is, in a sprite work, it easily clutters it. But if there was ever a full artwork of this, I'd probably include a couple of tongues just spiraling out, being weird and creepy, because that's just how Cyrex goes. She loves being creepy and weird and eccentric. Only problem I found with her, I guess, is the colours. Especially the dress bit, because I feel like it was too saturated, and then even after I got the colours right finally, it looked a bit too bland. I did add some weird little markings on it afterwards. Maybe she made up her own language or something, and that's what's written all over her chest, or maybe she's just messy. That's also a possibility. I don't really know. And since she is a siren, sirens are known to sing. I like the idea that she can maniacally laugh instead, and she also rips her own hair out, because I guess that gives her some magical powers. She is meant to be a witch after all. I guess witches, in some stories, witches get their power from their hair. I think at least. So I like the idea that she's, ripping strands of her hair out, and they just kind of float around her, and, she shoots that off. Like, if she had a signature move, it'd probably be something to do with her just ripping shards of her hair out. Plus, she's mad. That's what mad people do sometimes, and that's what she does. I also struggled with her eyes, because I didn't know if I wanted to make them swirly or if I wanted to give them actual pupils. And it turned out with pupils, well, her face looked not... It kind of lacked the charm a bit. It gave it, so I kept them back. And they look a bit like twirly lollipops, what I thought was kind of cute. But a bit either way. So yeah, that is Cyrex, the final, proud, weepy, weird and creepy, gigantical jellyfish witch. So there you have it. You've got Confuzzle, the weird little lonely kid. You've got Eccentress, the still weird teenager trying to find out who she really is by experimenting. And then you got Cyrex, who finally comes into her mad, weird self, and she loves every second of it. And now, I guess whilst I've got you still here, and since I've told you all 3 starter lines at this point, again, if you want to check out the Grass and Fire starter, go check those out. But, I guess I should explain the whole point of these 3 starters to you all now. As I've mentioned, most starter trios typically enjoy having a unifying theme what make them all banded together. And I'm sure if you've watched all 3 of these parts, you can probably gather there's some similarities between all 3 of them still, but I'll just spell out for you. Cuptis, Pipe-Up and Confuzzle and all of their evolutions are based upon growing up. That's the main unifying theme here. Let me explain it for each of the lines, I guess. Now, I'm only speaking from my experience, but I'm sure we do all know someone like Cuptis. At least on the outside, an overachiever. I've touched on it a bit, but Cuptises are meant to be incredibly smart and vigilant. I mean, they make themselves their own legs for Pete's sake. In fact, they seem so much of an overachiever, it seems like to the point that if they need help, you don't assume that they need it because, well, they're an overachiever, they'll figure something out, so it leads them to, if anything, struggle a lot more, even though... if you've seen the first episode, you'll know that Cuptis struggled a lot, being the least likely picked starter, and the fact that it doesn't have any legs. But at the same time, we definitely knew a sporty guy who was always into fighting, or at least sports, and you'd probably see that guy now confident in his own body because, well, he worked for it. Yeah, you could argue there was some genetics involved, but you can still see how Cuptis worked hard and got to where he is today and, fought through his own awkwardness. And then you've got Pipe Up, again, someone we've probably met before. Someone who doesn't not like getting their way, someone who enjoys arguing for the sake of arguing. Even though you keep telling them to stop, it's not cool, they kind of just, it's in their nature to start something up. And then as they get older, they trade that anger to angst, and it's kind of unbearable to hang out with them, but at the same time, you still kind of want to keep caring for them because, well, they're still a living being what you need to care for, even though you might see them get bullied a lot, and yeah, sure, they're different, but you still see them book their own ideas down, and it's probably likely that if you Google their name now, they're probably proud of themselves and doing something fantastic, like being a rock star, for example. Then, again, we probably met someone like Confuzzle when we were younger in school. Someone who, just lonely and weird, spent all their lunch times alone. Yeah, sure, if they were with other people like them, they spoke too much, but if they was alone, they never spoke at all. They annoyed other people around them, and, well, they were just weird. They were losers. But as they got older, they might have tried too hard to be different to try and find who they really were. They tried out new things. They got into different things. They found new hobbies. Hobbies what thousands of other of the same got into as well. And again, they went to conventions about it. They made their own stories about it. And they loved finally finding a place where they can be themselves. To the point where they finally do grow up into themselves. And sure, it's probably weird. It's probably not what you consider normal. But it's who they are and it's who they're proud to be. And that's the theme between all three starters. It's a sign to show that if you're ever in a dark place, don't give up. You keep working at it and anything can happen. Quite literally anything can happen. I don't care what you tell me, giving up will never be the right thing to do. And you gotta keep working for it, and no matter what challenges you'll find along the way, keep working at it and you'll find your place. Life's just a giant puzzle and you've just gotta find the place where you fit in. And it does exist. Trust me. So yeah, those are all three starter evolutions and their stories. I hope you all liked them. I guess next episode I'll continue to go with the rodents, bugs and birds of each region, because that's a common thing. But yeah, let me know what you think of these starters. Which one's your favourite now that you've seen them all? Which ones would you pick? Which ones would you abandon? And do you like their stories? Do you connect with any of them? I can definitely say that I do with a few of them. You know, I always see Pokemon trainers, people who play Pokemon, they make their own stories and everything, and I thought, why not we give the Pokemon themselves, going through their own stories and everything. I thought that was a cute little touch. I say that, I probably didn't create that norm, but still, regardless, thank you all so much for watching, and if you got any feedback or ideas for any new mod, feel free to let me know. And, enjoy the rest of your day, or if you're off to bed, have the sweetest of dreams, and I'll see you all in a bit. Toodaloo, bye.